My name is Mark. If you're new here, we want to say a special welcome. We would love to meet you. We would love to tell you more how you can get connected here at Trinity Church. I took my sons for the first time to jiu-jitsu this week. We're going to try it out this summer. And when we walked in the gym, I was shocked how friendly and welcoming they were. It was like everybody was giving us high fives and pounding it. And it was just like they were so excited that we were there. And yes, they're running a business, but you got a sense that they really care about the movement that they're a part of. And I left thinking, man, I hope that our church is this welcoming because we proclaim Jesus Christ, the Lord of the earth, the Lord of the heavens. He is salvation. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And so, guys, as we do that greeting time, that is not just kind of a formality. We want new people here to feel welcome because this is the greatest, most important movement in the world, the Church of Jesus. And so right now as a church, we're studying the Gospel of Mark. The whole purpose of this is to look at who is Jesus? Who is he? Who did his followers, the people that knew him, say that he was, teach that he was in this gospel? And so let's take a look at this story this morning called the Transfiguration. It is in Mark chapter 9, verse 2 through 13. Mark chapter 9, verses 2 through 13. I'm going to read it to you, and we will get into it. So here we go. Mark chapter 9, verse 2. And after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became radiant, intensely white, as no one on earth could bleach them. And there appeared to them Elijah with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. And Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah." For he did not know what to say, for they were terrified. And a cloud overshadowed them, and a voice came out of the cloud. "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him." And suddenly, looking around, they no longer saw anyone with them, but Jesus only. And as they were coming down the mountain, he charged them to tell no one what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept the matter to themselves, questioning what this rising from the dead might mean. And they asked him, "Why do the scribes say that first Elijah must come?" And he said to them, "Elijah does come first to restore all things. And how is it written of the Son of Man that he should suffer many things and be treated with contempt? But I tell you that Elijah has come, and they did to him whatever they pleased, as it is written of him." This is the word of the Lord. Glory. Glory. What is glory? What is the glory of Jesus? Why does the church today say that we are for the glory of God alone? What is this word glory all about? This passage here is a physical representation of Jesus' glory shown through him, shown in him and through him. His glory is shining out, and then there's a narrative around it that gives us meaning to what glory is all about. Guys, the theme of glory is so central to the human story, to every human life. The spirit of our age tells us to find purpose, to find glory in life involves looking inside ourselves, that you are important in and of yourself. But is that what the Bible teaches? Is that the gospel? The heart of the Christian faith, I would submit to you, is to turn from looking inward for significance. We saw last week, Jesus' instruction to the disciple was, we deny ourselves, we deny our insides, we take up our cross, we lose our life. Our importance is not self-conjured. Our importance is not self-declared. It is given to us as we look at Christ alone, knowing we are loved perfectly by God. You see, God loves us not because of ourselves. God does not love us because of our good works. God actually loves us in spite of us. Like our hearts are so full of sin, he loves us in spite of who we are and what we do. Not because of who we are and what we do. Yes, we are made in his image, which gives every person an inherent value, but through our dead works and sin, God's love toward us is not because of us, it's in spite of us. This is so crucial to finding meaning and purpose in life. You see, guys, everybody longs for glory. Everybody longs to feel important, successful, accomplished. Every day as people grind it out at work, what is this thing in our heart that this is this longing to feel important, successful, accomplished, to be seen that way? Where does that come from? It comes from us being made in the image of a God of glory. But the Christian claim is unique. Forget your own glory. Psalm 115 says very clearly, the prayer of a righteous person is not to us. Not to us, O Lord, but to your name be the glory. Our relationship with glory is actually to forget our own glory, to look up at something infinitely more glorious than we are, and being caught up in someone else's glory, the glory of God. You see, guys, we all over the place, we carry things that we should not carry in life. And carrying our own, the attempt to find our own glory is just one of those things we're not built to carry it. I remember when I was single, and one time the first mattress I bought, it was a single, one-person mattress. What do you call that? A twin mattress. And I remember putting it on top of my Jeep, thinking I'm strong enough to hold it up, right? And so I'm driving down the road in Orlando, down University Boulevard, and all of a sudden, whoo, the thing just goes flying off. And I'm like, I'm not as strong as I thought that I was, right? I mean, how many times I come home from the grocery store and you got like a million little plastic bags, and you just kind of slip your arms into all of them. I'm a man, I can do all this at once, carrying them all in, and then boom, things are breaking, falling. All of the times I've bought furniture at IKEA, right? And all of a sudden I look at the instructions, throw it across the room, halfway through, Megan is like, what are you doing? You don't know how to do this. You need the instructions. In life, guys, we carry things on our own that we should not carry. And the main thing the primary thing humans try to carry that we should not carry is our own glory, our own importance apart from the God who made us. We are made to look at another one's glory, at the glory of Jesus, and be caught up in who he is, right? Seek first what? Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Okay, so when we look at this transfiguration story, we're going to look at 3 points. Number one, Jesus' body testifies to his own glory. His body does. 2 witnesses testify to his glory, and the Father testifies to the glory of Jesus. So his body, 2 witnesses, and the Father. Let's take a look. First, Jesus' body testifies to his own glory. This phrase right at the beginning, and after 6 days. These few words are a key reference to the Old Testament. After 6 days echoes Exodus 24:16, where Moses ascends to Sinai and a cloud of glory covers the mountain. You see, in this story, we have a cloud covering the mountain that is the presence of the Lord. In this Moses story of ascending to Sinai, a cloud covers the mountain. Mark is signaling a new Sinai. God's presence is back as the cloud we see in the Old Testament. But this time, it's a new revelation of God's glory. See, throughout the scripture, mountains are places of decisive revelation. Sinai for the law, Horeb for Elijah's encounter, Zion for the temple, Calvary for the cross, the Mount of Olives for the ascension. Here, on a high mountain, the disciples are brought into the holy presence of God. The word transfigured, where do we get this? What happens as they're standing there, they go up on this mountain, they're standing there, and all of a sudden Jesus starts from within, starts shining like a blinding light. It's so bright that it's funny. The commentary is this about bleaching. You see this thing about bleaching? That his garments are described beyond bleaching. They're like whiter than any bleach could possibly bleach clothes, right? What's happening here? The Greek word here, it's a change of form. Now, it's important to note that this is not a new glory being added to Jesus. This is a glory that always dwelt in him as the eternal Son broke through the veil of his flesh. So Jesus has always been, he's always existed, he's always been God. He existed in the Trinity. And here, he has flesh that's around him, and the glory from within, all of a sudden, is giving the disciples a glimpse of his glory. There's a verse in John 1:14 where John reflects back on this incident. He's one of the guys standing here, and he says this, "We have seen his glory. Glory as of the only Son from the Father." A key difference between Jesus and every other person that has ever walked the earth is that if you were to open up any one of us, what would you find inside? You would find darkness. You would find sin. You would find twistedness. You would find self-centeredness. You would find the corruption of a lack of holiness. Here, what we see is, we're not going to open up Jesus ever, but if you could, and you could look inside of him, what would you find that's different than every other human that's ever lived? A bright, just burning holiness, completely without sin. The glory of an eternal God is inside this person, this human. He is fully God, fully man. And here, his glory is shining forth. St. Augustine put it like this. When you look at our own lives, here's just like a confession that he had. He said, "I had become to myself a place of unhappiness, in which I could not bear to be, and there was nowhere I could go to be away from myself." There's just this sense that sometimes it's like, how can I just get away from myself, right? I just sometimes want to get away from the bent of sin in my own heart. Even as a believer, that pull towards sin. I want you to know, Jesus never experienced that ever. He is always, always and forever, eternally filled with joy, with love, with peace. He's the source. He's the horizon that we look to. It's Jesus. He's the one with the glory. Robert Murray McCheyne put it like this: "For every one look you take at your own heart, we should take 10 looks at Jesus." For every one look you take at your heart, you should take 10 looks at the heart of Jesus. This one summer when I was 12 years old, it was the summer that I'm marking this in my life calendar. The Bulls beat the Suns in the finals. Jordan versus Barkley. Just so you know, this is when this happened. Totally irrelevant to the story. But we were in Maine. Okay, so my family took a trip to Maine, and it was like a summer vacation thing. And we went on a whale watch, right? And so we went on this whale watch, and we're on this boat. It wasn't that big of a boat, kind of like a slapped-together boat. And one of the interesting things about this little whale watch trip was the captain of the ship. Just a classic captain. I mean, the guy had a captain hat. He's smoking a cigar. He had this huge burly mustache. Big old guy, just like, language like a sailor, and I'm 12 years old just getting a kick out of this guy. And he's taking us out into the ocean to look at whales. He'd parked the boat. He also was the chef, so he'd be making us lunch. He made the most killer grilled cheese. I'm still searching for this grilled cheese. I don't know what he did, but it was so good. And he comes up smelling like smoke, handing me this grilled cheese on a white, plastic, whatever, paper. And on this boat trip, I remember just getting sick. I mean, I've never been on a boat before like this in the ocean. 12 years old. Motion sickness is killing me. I think he notices, he sees me. I'm sitting there like about to lose it. He comes over to me. He says, "Hey, boy." I look up and he's like, "Quit looking at yourself. Quit looking at the boat. Don't look at the deck. There's only one thing you should look at: the horizon. The horizon's the only thing that's not going to move." So I heard him, I get up, I go to the edge of the boat, and I look out at the horizon. Sure enough, it's the only thing that wasn't moving. And what did it do? It healed me. I started to feel better looking at the horizon. Who is Jesus? This light coming out of him. What is this about? He's the light of the world. He is the horizon. He is the one we are made to look at when we feel sick, when we're depressed, when we're anxious. All of our problems, all of the human problems in the world accumulate in one answer: Jesus Christ, the Lord of the universe. He is the horizon that we are made to look at, to find composure in life. So, Jesus' body testifies to his own glory. Number two witnesses testify to his glory. Here this passage says, and there appeared to them Elijah with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. This is huge. For an Old Testament Israelite, for the three disciples up there on this mountain, to all of a sudden, Moses is standing there, Elijah is standing there, talking to Jesus. This is the glory. I mean, this is the glory of their whole nation, their religion. These two guys, giant figures of the Old Testament. Many will say that these two guys up here together mean one thing: the covenantal representation of the whole Old Testament. You have the law, Moses, and the prophets, Elijah. These two guys represent two major parts of the whole Old Testament story, and here they are having a conversation with Jesus. What are they talking about? Well, Luke's parallel account of this story says they were speaking of Jesus' exodus. Jesus' exodus, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Jesus is sharing the gospel with Moses and Elijah. He's up here explaining to them his exodus. They knew the exodus where God rescued God's people out of slavery into the promised land. He's saying, we got a new exodus coming. We have a new exodus coming. Now, this story right here could provoke a lot of questions that we honestly don't have answers for, okay? You could ask, I heard a good question this week. Were they there physically? Were they ghosts? Were they apparitions? Like, what was it going on that they were up there, right? What was their form? We don't know. The gospel writers didn't think, or God didn't think, it was important to give us those details. What we do know is they're standing there and they're physically apparent enough to where the disciples know who they are, or Jesus explained to them who they were at some point in this conversation. So there they are up there, right? What does this mean that they're up there, and what does this speak to Jesus' glory? Well, they're talking about the exodus of Jesus, and then it says, and suddenly, looking around, they no longer saw anyone with them but Jesus only. Okay, this is an important little phrase here. What Mark is doing here is saying Jesus is up there. He's talking to these two giant figures about his exodus. Peter, when he sees them, is like, hey, should we set up a camp? Should we set up tents? 3 equal tents. One for Moses, one for Jesus, one for Elijah. The narrative suggests that what Peter is getting at here is, you guys are equals, right? Like, y'all are like equal. Like Moses, Elijah, Jesus, you're like on the same level as these guys. But no, how does the narrative play out? They disappear. Jesus stands alone. And then the Father declares, which we'll get to in a minute, this is my son, listen to him. You see, Elijah is gone. The cloud lifts. And there stands the Son, alone, sufficient, supreme. After the shadows have spoken their peace, what remains is Christ alone. For the Israelite, once again, Moses and Elijah represented what was most important to them. And here, they are completely overshadowed by Jesus. Jesus overshadows them. So here's an application question to this point. What in your life needs to be overshadowed by Jesus? What in your life competes with Jesus? What competes for your attention? What competes for your affections? What competes for your source of happiness and delight and joy? What voices do you listen to for direction on how to live your life? that competes with Jesus. Who are we to listen to? Jesus. The Father speaks clearly. The prolific author, poet, David Foster Wallace, in 2005 spoke at a Kenyon College commencement speech. It's a famous speech called "This is Water." He committed suicide shortly after this speech. But when he spoke this speech, he spoke a lot of truth when he said that day to day, in the day-to-day trenches of adult life, there is actually no such thing as atheism. There is no such thing as not worshiping. Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship. And an outstanding reason for choosing some sort of God or spiritual type thing to worship is that pretty much anything else you worship will eat you alive. If you worship money and things, if they are where you tap real meaning in life, then you will never have enough. Never feel you have enough. Worship your body and beauty and sexual allure, and you will always feel ugly. And when time and age start showing, you will die 1,000,000 deaths before they finally plant you. And you could go on. You could add on to this list. Worship power, worship position, worship career, worship family, worship marriage, worship love, worship anything other than Jesus as the supreme object of your worship. And it will eat you alive. It will eat you alive until your family finally buries you. What is it for you? What's the thing that you think you can't live without? What's that one thing that if it were taken from you, you think you would die? You would think, I don't know if life is worth living if you remove this from my life. The only person, the only thing who has the power and the strength to hold that position in your heart is Jesus Christ. There's this thing in architecture called a keystone of an arch. An arch has a keystone. The keystone is the top rock, at the piece, the rock, the boulder, whatever it is, that holds the arch together. If you remove the keystone, the whole thing falls apart. Jesus is the keystone of life. He alone is built to hold the place in your heart as the ultimate object of worship. I think you know what I'm talking about. Think about your life. Think about the time you've put in. If you're 20, 30, 40, 80, 90, whatever. Most of you in this room, you've lived long enough to see just that downward spiral. When you make some created thing your ultimate object of worship, how it doesn't hold up. It doesn't deliver. Jesus alone will. He's the only thing in this life that gets beautiful, the more you know him, the more you delve into him, the more you learn to talk to him, the more you learn to pray, the more you learn to be in his presence. He's the only thing in this existence that gets better and more beautiful over time. Nothing like him. Number 3, the Father testifies to Christ's glory. The cloud. What's up with this cloud? The cloud that overshadows them is not just a random cloud, it's like a visual representation. I was up on a mountain once outside of Estes Park, Colorado, in the Rocky Mountain National Park. My friends and I were running around on the top of this. It was only 12,000 feet. Sorry, I wasn't 14. I wasn't super high, but high enough. And we're 12,000 feet high on this mountain. And all of a sudden, a real cloud just comes and envelopes us, surrounds us. It was kind of creepy. When you're inside a real cloud, at least this one, you put your hand far enough out, and it's almost like you couldn't see it. Right? It was that thick. The static was so intense, our hair started standing up. We got terrified. We're college guys, think we're fearless, and we're like, are we about to explode in a lightning bolt? We need to get out of here. So we're now sprinting across this cliff, just dodging, jumping, moving, trying to get out of this cloud. Kind of terrifying. The disciples are also terrified. It says that they're terrified. They're scared. But this cloud was not any normal cloud. This was the cloud that represented Father God from the Old Testament. The Shekinah glory of God was there, surrounding them. The Shekinah glory cloud that filled, the same cloud that filled the tabernacle in Exodus 40, that led Israel through the wilderness in Exodus 13, that filled Solomon's temple in 1 Kings 8. This same cloud is back. Now, why did it leave? There is a story in the Old Testament where it actually left and it hadn't come back since. What happened was the Israelites had taken pagan idols into the temple and were worshiping them in the temple of God where the Shekinah glory, this cloud, dwelt. So the cloud left. The cloud left the temple, and it never came back until this moment. This is an extremely significant moment in salvation history, that the cloud is back, and where is it localizing itself? Over Jesus. And it's speaking. And what does it say? It says, "This is my beloved Son." Listen to him. Not just a son, it's beloved Son. The Father loves this Son. This Son is worthy of his love. This is the only person that has ever lived who's truly worthy of the Father's love. Now, a keen reader of the Old Testament, I believe, would make this observation or ask this question: how is it that the disciples did not die? How did they walk off that mountain? Because all through the Old Testament, there's all this emphasis in the law of, if you come into the presence of this cloud the wrong way, without the right ceremonies, without the right sacrifices, without the right blood being shed, you will die. Because this cloud is the holy majesty of God. In the Matthew version of this story, there's a light within it. There's a light within it, okay? When Moses is in the presence of this cloud, he walks away and the light is shining off of his face. When this cloud comes and Jesus is standing in this presence, the light is coming out of Jesus. It's not reflecting off of him from the cloud. He's being transfigured. It's coming from within him. Here you have the disciples in the presence of a holy, awesome, just, wrathful God, and these guys are sinners. How did they not die? I think the obvious answer, the obvious and clear answer as you continue to read this gospel, as you read the other gospels, is also Jesus. He's the mediator. He's fully God and fully human. He's come here to do something new. And what does he come here to do? Be the final and perfect sacrifice for sin. The lambs that you would have to kill, the blood that you would have to shed to come into the presence of the holy God, the final, ultimate lamb is going to be shed. And him standing there serves as some kind of shield in between God's holiness and these sinful human beings. I would submit, it doesn't say this, but I would submit that if these disciples, if any one of us were standing up on that mountain and that cloud were to come in the same way that it did and Jesus was not there, we would be dead. We would be dead because our hearts are filled with sin. But here you have Jesus standing as the light of the world, as a shield. Guys, there's huge implications here. Huge implications about Jesus, that he alone deserves the glory. I was in a Bible study in college, and this Bible study leader, his name was Blake Holmes. He's now an executive pastor in Dallas at Watermark, and I remember he was leading us through the Word, and this one Bible study, with me and him and a bunch of buddies, he asked us this question. He begins the discussion, lobs us this question, and says to us, guys, let's discuss something. What is the most important thing to God? What is the most important thing to God? I remember as a cocky freshman Christian guy, I remember hearing this and thinking, what is the most important thing to God? This is easy. What kind of JV Bible study is this? What is the most important thing to God? Of course, it's people. It's us, right? People, the church. So I, shout, people. People are the most important thing to God. And Blake, in his kind of confrontational, loving fashion, just says, wrong answer. Wrong answer. What? People are not the most important thing to God? What are you So other guys are looking at each other like, what kind of Bible? Maybe this is a varsity Bible study. I don't know. What's going on here? And then he shows us verse after verse after verse after verse after verse, like 20-some verses, saying over and over and over again all the different things that are for what? For the glory of God, for the glory of God, for the glory of God. Our salvation is for the glory of God. Our good works are for the glory of God. The church is for the glory of God. Everything in all of creation is for what? The glory of God. What is the most important thing to God? His own glory. His own glory is the most important thing to God. That is why when Jesus says to us, seek first what? His kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. That's a call to be like God. To seek first the glory of God. Not my glory, not my fame, but his glory and his fame. Guys, this is a paradigm shift, but it might be the most important paradigm shift of your life. Whose glory are you living for? See, guys, God is the only thing worthy of being the most important thing. God is not ego-driven. You might think, oh, is God ego-driven? Is he prideful, in the way a human is? No. Rather, it's because he is the source of all goodness, truth, beauty. He would be unjust. He would be a liar if he pointed us toward anything other than himself to make the most important thing. If he said, make yourself the most important thing, that would be unjust. That would be unloving. You would be making something not worthy of being the most important thing, the most important thing. Guys, every life has a center of gravity. Just like our earth has a center of gravity. The sun is a center of gravity. The planets are filled with centers of gravity. Life, your life, has a center of gravity. A point around which everything else orbits. Career, family, hobby, body, ambition, ideology. When the center of gravity shifts, every other orbit reorders itself. Every other orbit reorders itself. The gospel is not Jesus added to your life. The gospel is not you add Jesus as one of the many things that's orbiting around your life. It is Jesus becoming the center of gravity. So that family, work, ambition, even the body itself, take their new orbits around him. Jesus is the only one big enough, strong enough to be the center of gravity of your life and hold everything together. You're going to make something the most important thing. You're going to. You're going to make something the ultimate object of your worship. You make anything other than Jesus and things start to fall apart. Here's just a couple ways this plays out. This is how just concluding thoughts here. One, this is a cure for the performance trap. It's a cure for the performance trap. When we think the world is about our own glory, every failure is a catastrophe. If you're about your glory, every failure will be a catastrophe. You will feel overly crushed. Because who's it about? It's about you. It's about your glory. When Jesus is your glory, failure is it's a learning opportunity. It's like, yeah, everybody fails. I had a kid this week who they didn't win the certain jiu-jitsu thing, and it was like they were devastated. I was like, dude, you got to learn to lose in life. It's okay to lose. It's good to lose. I hope you lose. You have to learn life's not about your glory. You have to learn to get up from failure. Making Jesus your glory, your ultimate glory, is the best antidote for learning how to fail well. But also, every success is a burden because we then have to what? Maintain it. Success can be one of the most addicting drugs on earth because when you're successful, now I got to maintain this thing when it's my glory. So much of stress and anxiety in life can come from when you are the source of your own glory and you succeed. Then what do you got to do? You got to do everything you can to maintain that success. Versus living with Jesus' glory and working hard unto the Lord, trusting that even if you fail, it's okay. It's not about you. It's about Jesus. It's also resilience in suffering. Resilience in suffering. If there is no God, then suffering is just a cosmic mistake. But John 9, when the man born blind, Jesus says, as it happened, so that the works of God might be displayed in him. Even our suffering, even our physical ailments, even our physical disabilities, When you live for God's glory, now you have the strength to get through them, because life isn't about you. It's ultimately about proclaiming his glory, and that trusting that even in your suffering, he has a plan and a purpose. When Joseph went through all that stuff in the Old Testament, prisoner, slave for 14 years, the end of the story is what? What man meant for evil, God meant for good, and the saving of many lives. You see, God is about his own glory. He even allowed Joseph to suffer, to go through this hard season, crazy difficult season, for what? For God's glory and Joseph's good. It turned him from a spoiled brat into an amazing leader. And Joseph learned the lesson of what? Being a good leader through what? The school of suffering and living for God's glory, even when you're in the bottom of the pit. Even when you don't feel like it. And then lastly, radical humility and joy. Radical joy. There's a massive relief in realizing that you aren't the lead actor. You aren't the lead actor. Jesus is. As Rocky runs down the street in Philadelphia, up the stairs to the statue. The statue's not there yet. I guess they built it after. Imagine if one of the little kids jumps in front and is like, look at me, you know? You'd be like, kid, get out of the way. There's rest and peace in knowing we're one of the little kids running behind Jesus. We got to know our role. This is about him. There's rest and joy in letting go of carrying the burden of our own glory. Let go and let him be who it's all about. 2 examples of this and we're done. Number 1, R.G. Letourneau. R.G. Letourneau was the father of modern tractor equipment. Okay, I know that you guys are big tractor equipment people. You guys all know about R.G. Letourneau. He famously reversed tithed. He kept 10% of his income and gave 90% away. His quote was, God is not my partner. He is the senior partner. I shovel out and God shovels in, but God has the bigger shovel. God has the bigger shovel. I shovel out, God shovels in, God has the bigger shovel. Letourneau College in Longview, he built that, many other things. This was a guy who sought first the kingdom of heaven. Not everybody has to give away 90%. 10% was probably more than all we have, but it's a good story of someone who's like, how can I seek first the kingdom of God? Another story, Susanna Wesley. Susanna Wesley, 2 of her kids changed the face of Christianity in the modern West, Charles and John Wesley. Many don't know Susanna Wesley's story. She raised 19 children, buried 9 children, lived in poverty. She made a practice every day of all of her kids that she had in this poor house in the dirt. Her main goal every day was a 1-hour appointment with each kid in discipleship around the word and prayer. And she had this philosophy of, I'm going to do that first and everything else will fall into place. We do that first and they'll get fed, they'll get everything they need. And guess what? 2 of her sons, Charles and John Wesley, changed the face of Christianity in the modern West. Many of the songs that you have sung throughout your life in the church were written by Charles or John Wesley. Churches all over the West, all over the South are there because of these 2 men. But they're there because one mom who lost 9 kids, put the kingdom of God first in her life and trusted that God would shovel in the rest. God has a bigger shovel. He can carry the weight of the glory that you long for. Guys, you were never built to carry the weight of your own glory, but you were made to be carried by his. You don't have to manufacture your worth. Christ has already declared it on the cross, and the freedom of the Christian life is to stop trying. Guys, when we take communion each week, this is a practice of letting go of your own glory and declaring the glory of Jesus. It's saying that I'm so bad and so sinful. If you looked inside of me, you would find so much sin that you would realize that's why Jesus had to die on a cross. That's the punishment that I deserve. That's the punishment that you deserve. But he loves you so much. He loves you so much that he was glad to die on a cross for you, to bring you into his family, to be his brothers and his sisters, for the Father to adopt you as his children for all of eternity.